Well, good afternoon, everybody. Declan Fitzmaurice is my name. I chair the technical committee in the Institute of Refrigeration. Very pleased you could join us today. We have an excellent webinar just for over the lunchtime hour. We should be finished ahead of 2 o'clock. So the topic today is the Fgas regulations. We have an update from Seamus Kerr, who will tell us about the changes in a quick review of the Fgas legislation, where we are at the moment, and what the proposal is for the requirements for training and certification. And we also have Owen O'Riordan from the newly renamed Department for Climate, Energy and the Environment, and he will outline the current position of the department on these training and certification requirements. So the webinar will be recorded. If you have any questions, if you just type them in the Q&A box, should be a box at the top of your menu bar. If you just type them in there, and if we have time at the end, we'll put them to the speakers. Okay, so thank you very much, and I'll hand over to you first, Seamus.
Thank you very much, Declan. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, so today just a kind of an update on the current Fgas regulations. So this is me. I am just my three hats. So I'm on the council of the Institute of Refrigeration. I'm also on the board and attend the various working meetings of IRI. IRI are the European contractors representative based in Belgium. And they've got about 23,000 members, all like yourselves, those of you who are working in contracting. And then I am the MD of RSL Group here in Ireland and England. And just a big thanks to our corporate partners, so that they help us keep this institute going and provide events like this. Okay. I have a little thing. I won't spend long on this. This is just some natural refrigerants. So when you get the handout is available for you to have a look at later on, and you can play with that and work out which of these natural refrigerants are what the real name is. So to talk a little bit about the Fgas regulation. So it came into force in it was voted on in December 2024, and we saw the first impacts and first effects of it in 2025. I'll be talking about the following subjects, and pretty much quite a short little introduction to each one, or description of each one. And then Owen from the department will speak a little bit more about the mandatory training and certification. It's the exact same thing. So the phase down, what we used to call a phase down, has now become a phase out. So phase down is where the EU have decided to limit the amount of refrigerants that can be imported into Europe, and they do this by putting a maximum quantity on the CO2 equivalent tons of refrigerant that can be imported into Europe. This is probably the thing that will affect us most and have the biggest impact on our industry. So if you can see these numbers, that this year, so 2025 and 2026, we're allowed to import 42 gigatons of CO2 equivalent of refrigerant into the EU. And everyone kind of thinks that's, it's very far away, the impact or the effect of this. We've seen the effect already, but this is very important here. 2030, so in 2027, so not next year, but the following year, that quota will be halved. And in 2030, it'll be down to 9.1 gigatons. So it's and then if you look down, it goes down and down to 2050, it's zero. What does that look like on a graph? It looks like this. So the blue shows that the old Fgas regulation, and the red shows the new regulation, which we voted in 2024. This is what it looks like when you stretch it out to 2050. So the fall will kind of slow down from 2035 on, but I think at that stage it won't matter much. Then to talk about equipment bans. So there's several different, and you can read this in your own time, there's several different equipment bans that will come into place. Some of them I just highlight now. So, for example, domestic fridges, this was done already. Generally, you had to have a refrigerant with a GWP of 150 or less. from 2015 on. So that meant that we lost all our, we really switched to 1234YF, and a lot of your fridges at home will be running on propane or butane. And then basically the new regulation says from 2026 on, it has to be propane or butane. So from next year on, you won't be able to buy or sell a domestic fridge that contains a non-natural refrigerant. Interesting one for us who are work in the heat pump sector. So it says from January 2027, plug-in monoblock air conditioning and other self-contained heat pump equipment with a maximum rated capacity of up to 12 kilowatts that contain a GWP of 150 or more will be banned. So those are monoblock heat pumps and self-contained air conditioning, things that come in one box. And so that's from January 2027. So that's obviously where the rise in interest of propane heat pumps is coming from. Excuse me. And then for the ones bigger than 12 kilowatts, that will be from January 2032. So then you'll have to use a refrigerant with a GWP below 750 for the larger units. So they've just kind of summarized that, basically full Fgas ban on small monoblock heat pumps. Now small, 12 kilowatts is big if you have a house and you're using it in your house. So full ban of that from 2027, but push for R32, and that means you'll have to at least 150. Oh yes, so lower than 150 in 2027, and then no only naturals allowed from 2032 on. And just note on chillers, so chillers above 12 kilowatts, again, you'll have to use a refrigerant with a GWP of less than 750. These are just some of the highlights just for your notes. And that's the same thing again. Then just to look at an important one for the air conditioning sector. So air to water systems up to and including 12 kilowatts have to use a low GWP refrigerant of lower than 150 from the 1st of January 27 on. And then air-to-air systems, which is typical split air conditioning systems, up to 12 kilowatts. From 2029 on, you'll have to use a refrigerant with a GWP of less than 150. Service bans, just to summarize the service ban in this slide, basically from the 1st of January 2025, using a high GWP refrigerant of greater than 2,500 has been banned. So that basically for us, it means in our industry, the 404A and 507 virgin refrigerants are now legally banned since the 1st of January 2025, and with the only exception being if you're very low temperature of down at -50 or military equipment. I've put a little slide in here with the alternatives, but I won't go into it at the moment. But obviously there's natural alternatives of propane, butane, carbon dioxide and ammonia. Then to talk about mandatory training and certification, Owen will speak about this in more detail. But we may have been familiar with the category 1, 2, 3, and 4 that was in place up until now. So now those categories have changed. So now there's going to be a category A1, which will be F-gas and natural refrigerants or hydrocarbons. Sorry, I shouldn't say natural refrigerants, I should say hydrocarbons. So it's F-gas, and for us at the moment, the flammable refrigerants. So that's going to be an A1. And then there's an A2 for the smaller F-gas plus hydrocarbons. There's going to be a B certificate, which is for the CO2 systems. There's going to be a C certificate for the ammonia systems, a D certificate for the recovery of F gases only. And this again, I think, was kind of put in for the recycling side of our industry and for the reclaim and maybe for the waste facilities in Ireland. And then there's a category E, which is for personnel who only check for leaks. So, and if you're in any of these areas, you'll have to have a certification. It's mandatory that you do training and have certification for these subjects. And then just announced the new Fgas regulation brought in some of the mobile or the car industry or the lorry industry and trains and buses, and they have their own category now for Fgas handling of M1, M2, M3. I've only found out about that last week, so just announcing it here. I'm not going to spend very long on these slides, just to say there's a 2-year mark. So Owen will talk about this. Your current certificates are valid, but they will soon become invalid. And then, so 3 years after the entry into force of the regulation, the mandatory training courses have to be started. Talk a little bit about leak checking. So one of the changes in the old Fgas regulation, you had to leak check within 24 hours. I might have this wrong now. Yes, you had to retest the system. So once you did a repair on the system, in your Fgas logbook, you had to record the repair, you had to record the leak test, and then you had to do a second leak test. And within 24, at the time it was within 24 hours. Now it's changed that to say that it's after 24 hours. So you have to check the system a day later, or 2 days, or a week, up to a month. That's a big impact if you're a contractor who lives in Cork and has a client in Castletownbere. So you actually have to go back to check the leak and to do another leak test. The interesting in the 2024 Fgas regulation that they've said that the leak checking doesn't apply to equipment that contains the alternative refrigerants. So, which is, I think, will cause confusion in the future, because you'll go up to an air conditioning unit that has propane in it and you won't have to leak check it, and one that still has R32 in it, an old unit, you will have to. But that's the what's been voted through. And the last thing I'm going to cover is the quota levy. Just that you know that there's a HFC quota allocation price at €3 per CO2 ton. So basically, for any refrigerant or quota that's been used in the EU, so any refrigerant that's been brought in from China or from Turkey or anywhere outside the EU, for every CO2 ton that is used, the purchaser or the importer of that refrigerant will have to pay €3 for that CO2 ton, a €3 extra to the EU, and that's so on average, each kilo of refrigerant will cost at the point where it's imported into Europe will be costing an extra €6 per kilo on average. And of course, the lower the GWP, the less the fee. And that is me. So I'm going to hand over to Owen, who'll take it from here.
Yeah, thanks, Seamus.
No problem.
And thanks also to Declan and Karen for the opportunity to join your webinar today. As I said back at the AGM in April, in the department we always find these events useful, just as a the kind of a communication and engagement tool to reach the industry. So always very happy to contribute to these events. I have literally 2 slides now, so if you just do you need to stop sharing there, Seamus? Oh yeah, perfect. I'll just find my ones now, 1 second.
Yeah, that's okay, Owen. I've stopped sharing now.
Sure. Those of you who were at the AGM in April will recognise that I've recycled the slides, but that's okay, I suppose, isn't it? So is that up now?
Yes.
That's
there
up. You
now.
might go into presenter mode. It's showing your slides at the side as well.
Yeah.
Slideshow. If you would go into slideshow.
Sure, yeah.
And we always promote recycling in the industry, Owen.
Circular economy. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, so Seamus gave kind of a broad overview of the regulation there, and I'll expand a little bit now on the certification and training aspects. Most of you, or probably all of you listening, will be familiar with the current requirements that have been around since the old Fgas regulation, the 2014 one, and some of them even date back to the 06 regulation before that. So for every technician, every engineer who's involved in installation, maintenance, service, repair, decommissioning, and in some instances as well, leak checks of equipment containing F-gas is supposed to have the personal, the engineer level certification. Now, back in the day, most of you would have got that probably from a City and Guilds registered or City and Guilds accredited training facility. In the post-Brexit world, UK-based or UK accredited bodies aren't compatible with the F-gas regulation anymore. So many of you would have exchanged your City and Guilds cert for an EPA issued cert back in 2020 when they were running that scheme to kind of bring the certification in Ireland into line. And any of you who have done, the newer engineers amongst you who have done the training for the first time since then would have got a QQI issued cert. You'd have done the training either in the LCETB, that's the Limerick and Clare Education Technology Board, often in Shannon, or else in ECSE up in County Louth. They're the only two training providers that have been giving that training on F-gases so far. And of course, there's the Cat 1. Excuse me, there was the Cat 1, Cat 2, 3, and 4 system, depending on what Cat 1 is kind of like the main one, and then Cat 2, 3, and 4 were smaller or niche aspects of it. So that's the background and the current situation, the until now situation. So the new regulation that came in March of 2024 introduces two main new elements. The first one is that it broadens the scope. So the training and certification to date has just been for F-gases, HFCs in particular. Now they're broadening that to alternatives. So let me just put this up on the screen. I won't bother doing it one by one. I'll just put them all up at once. So anything I've highlighted in yellow here is new stuff coming in the new regulation. Just to clarify, actually, the F-gas regulation that came in March of 2024 is regulation 2024-573. Coming out of that now, over the last year or so, the European Commission has been releasing a lot of implementing regulations, so smaller regulations under the umbrella of that large one, which just kind of fleshes out the detail in lots of aspects. And that implementing regulation there, 2024-2215, that fleshes out the detail on the training and certification requirements in the RAC HP space. So you still require mandatory certification for technicians carrying out installation, service, maintenance, repair, decommissioning of equipment containing F-gases in Annex 1, that's HFCs. But added now as well, there's also Annex 2, Section 1, that's HFOs and alternatives. So that's the naturals that Seamus talked about earlier, which come broadly under three headings: the hydrocarbons, which is the flammables, so that's your propane and butane, isobutane for the most part, carbon dioxide, which is the kind of high pressure stuff, and then ammonia, which had the toxic risk associated with it. So that's a big change. F-gases are reasonably stable compounds. They're generally not flammable. Some of them are mildly flammable, but not very flammable. They're generally not toxic, and you don't operate them under very high pressures. So the introduction of new refrigerants introduces new hazards, that toxicity, flammability, high pressure. So as a result of that, the training requirements and certification requirements need to change. A couple of other new things: stationary organic Rankine cycles. Not sure if any of you are using those. And then there's the refrigeration units of refrigerated light-duty vehicles, intermodal containers, and train wagons. Probably a niche enough area, but maybe some of you are involved in that. Most likely those of you who are involved in that are also involved in mainstream RAC HP, so you probably already have the F-gas certification. Separate to the certification of individual engineers, there's also then the certification of undertakings, which we usually call company certification. So that's those of you who are involved in, contracting services. You need to get your company certification from, in Ireland. FGR are the only body who offer that service, and that you get that renewed every year. And then the last point there I've written is mutual recognition across the EU. So it's important that whatever system we bring in here, that if an engineer with certification from Ireland goes to work in France or Spain or Poland or wherever, that the certs are immediately recognizable to, my counterparts in Poland and Czech Republic and Germany and places, and vice versa. Polish or Dutch or Czech engineers coming here with their certification from their countries, ourselves in the department and colleagues in the EPA need to be able to recognize that the certifications all have to be to a spec, if I put it that way. So to incorporate that new requirement, the alternatives, the implementing regulation sketches out a kind of a new system, which Seamus mentioned. So the old Cat 1, 2, 3, and 4 has been replaced by A1, A2, B, C, D, and E. So loosely speaking, A1 is the same as Cat 1, and you add in the hydrocarbons on top of that as well. So you can consider A1 as being a kind of a mixing together of two things, your F-gas Cat 1 and your hydrocarbons. Similarly, A2 is F-gas Cat 2 plus the hydrocarbons, and then B, C, D, and E are as written on the screen there. So that's the broadening of scope. I'll come back to that table in a second. I just want to mention I said there were two main aspects. The other main aspect is the idea of refresher courses. The old system, if you got your QQI cert or your EPA cert, there was no time limit, no expiry date on it. And the new regulation does put not so much expiry dates on them, but it does require refresher training at least every 7 years. So the good news is that any cert you got under the old reg, so your existing cert, still remains valid for the purposes for which it was issued. But now from March in 2027, which is still a year and a half away, we're going to have to set up a new system whereby engineers are required to recertify or at least get refresher training. And those refresher courses then will have to be completed for the first time no later than the 12th of March 2029. Now, in the department and with our colleagues in the EPA, this refresher aspect for us is kind of the second thing we need to deal with. So we haven't set up that system yet. So for now, you can kind of forget about the refresher requirement. Okay. So I'll just sorry, I'll just go back to the problem one, if I can call it that for the time being, about the broadening of the scope. So the way we're going to work it now is that all of you who currently have your F-gas Cat 1 cert from QQI or EPA, that's fine, you keep that, and it's still valid for any work you carry out on equipment containing F-gases, of course. What you'll need to do now as soon as possible for yourself, if you're working on hydrocarbons, you'll now need to obtain the hydrocarbon certification as well. So over the past few months, we've been engaging with the two training providers, that's LCETB in Shannon and ECAC in Louth, and both of them now are ready to provide what's called the Real Alternatives hydrocarbons training cert. So ECAC are already offering it, and I think they have been offering it for a couple of years already. But LCETB, which is the much larger training body, they're starting it, I think, as early as next week or possibly the week after. So excuse me. So I would encourage those of you who expect to be working on hydrocarbons, which is probably most of you, to obtain that certification from LCETB or from ECAC as soon as you can. I'm not sure of the duration. Is it a day or 2 days or whatever? But if you get onto either of those two training centres, or even check their websites, I'm sure it's all up there. With regard to carbon dioxide, ECAC are already offering the carbon dioxide course, I think, and LCETB are looking to get in the equipment to start offering it. That they're not ready to go yet, but I think they expect to be offering it within the coming months. Ammonia is a little more niche, and I'm not sure if either of the two of them have immediate plans to provide that training. It will require them to buy additional equipment and set up a new, a new rig or whatever in their on their premises. So I'm not sure yet when the ammonia will be available. The D and the E then are just the equivalent of Cat 3 and 4 from the old cert. So the take-home message, I think, is just you presumably you already have your Fgas cert from QQI or EPA. That'll remain valid for the time being. When we get to, as I said on the other slide, 2027 and beyond, we're going to look at a refresher system, but you can forget about that for now. Your Fgas cert for now works fine for Fgas work. So just go away, assuming you're working on hydrocarbons, propane and so forth. Make contact with LCETB or ECAC, and we'd strongly encourage you to obtain that certification as well, because that is required if you're to do installation, maintenance, service, maintenance, or decommissioning of equipment containing hydrocarbons. So I think I'll leave it at that. I hope it's clear, but if there's Q&A, I'm happy to stay on for that.
Okay, Owen, thank you very much. That was very good. Yeah, I have a few questions in, and if anybody wants to put questions in, Karen, will I see those on my chat?
Yeah, it'll either be in the chat or the Q&A. There's two tabs.
Oh, I see the Q&A, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Will I unshare the slides?
So it's okay, actually.
Handy backdrop, I suppose.
Yes, yes. So Owen, just to clarify then, for legally, when would a contractor be required to have their hydrocarbons certificate? So if they kind of say, I'll get it by 2029, is that too late?
Oh, it would be, like 2029 is for the refresher aspect. So in theory, any contractor from the 12th of March 2024, 2024, who was doing installation, service, maintenance with hydrocarbons needed, in reality, it's taken the commission a year to sketch out the detail of the slide you have on the screen, or the table in the screen before you, and it's taken us in the department another, I think, 9 months to get a system up and running to have that training available. So it's available now. So I would just say, get it as soon as you can.
Okay. But has it been?
Of course, there are, better than me, Seamus, there's, I don't know, 3,000 or 4,000 engineers in the country. If they obviously won't all be able to get it in the next 2 weeks. That's kind of understood.
Yeah, of course. Has it been, has the Fgas 2024 been ratified into Irish law at this stage?
Yeah, well, of course, it's a regulation, so it's law immediately. It doesn't need any specific implementing regs. What we are doing at the moment now is working on an implementing SI for the Irish law, but all that does is it assigns responsibility to the EPA as enforcement body, or to FGR as certification body, or it sets the fines, a €500 fine, or a 10,000 euro fine, or whatever, for specific offences. It isn't bringing in any new law. So the law in the regulation, that's law around Europe immediately.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And when do we think that SA will come into Ireland?
Well, we have a draft of it now. The plan is to get it out by the end of the year. And that'll give clarity on the offences and what's a fine and what's a court case, a criminal offence, and so forth.
Okay. Well, hopefully it won't come to that, but it's important to have, because it's, I suppose, for the contractors to be all playing off a level playing field, you need some sort of legislation to back up. What you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. And the offences there'll be the court. So the EPA are the main enforcement body. So there'll be the court enforcement action or pathway available to them, which has always been available. There'll also be fixed payment notices available, these kind of on the spot fines that they'll be able to do. So they'll roll that out. I don't know, maybe within a year of the new SI coming in.
Yeah. Okay.
And we've found in other areas, in waste and in other areas, that the on-the-spot fines can be a very effective tool, for compliance. You may not issue very many of them, but just the knowledge that they are there can be very useful.
Yes, persuasive, as we.
Persuasive, that's the word I was looking for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. The certificates, I have a question on the mutual recognition of certificates between ourselves, and it's difficult to use the term UK because UK includes Northern Ireland. So shall we call it GB?
GB, yeah.
Yeah. So GB will have their existing 2078 certs. So are the certs recognized? Will the EU, the A, B, C, and D be recognized in the UK? In GB?
They have committed to recognizing the existing Cat 1, 2, 3, and 4 certs under the old reg in GB. I haven't heard from them yet if they'll be recognizing the A1, A2, the new system, but I wouldn't see any reason why they wouldn't. They are working on a review of their own Fgas regulation now. Originally, they had hoped to get it out before the EU one, which is 18 months ago, so they're obviously running behind. But we do expect to see a new GB Fgas regulation in, I can't put a timeline on it, to be honest.
Yeah, I would guess mid-2026.
Oh, really? Okay.
But,
all right.
Yeah, but there seems to be, there's certainly, people are asking questions, and so that's a guess now. That's a guess. So.
Yeah.
And obviously at the moment, in terms of mutual recognition, the EU doesn't recognize the GB certs.
No, unfortunately not.
Okay.
That created a headache for us back 4 years ago. You'll remember that, I'm sure.
Yeah. So if someone in the EU, for example, wanted to work on a carbon dioxide system here in Ireland and wanted the certificate B, they would have to do that via either real alternatives or whatever, an acceptable course in the EU somewhere.
That's the current situation. Now there is a little bit of wriggle room for us in that, Seamus, actually, in that with regard to the Fgas training. If you look up the regulation there, 2024 2215, and the older from 2015 as well, there's an Annex 1 in the back of it which gives very kind of specific details on what's to be in the Fgas training. The new 2024 2215 adds into that what's to be in the alternatives, the hydrocarbons and the CO2, but it's very vague. It's not very specific. So as a result, there may be a possibility down the road for us to name in our own legislation UK-based training, given that so we would need to vouch that it is compliant with the 2024 2215.
Mm-hmm.
But given how vaguely specified the requirements for hydrocarbons, CO2 and ammonia are in 2024 2215, that may be possible.
Okay. Yeah, it could be interesting because as a relatively small island, small population,
exactly.
Having big training centres with big ammonia rigs and CO2 rigs is difficult.
Yeah.
I have another question in from the...
And having a place next door where they speak English, obviously that's a big advantage.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I have a question here. So is there a means of escalation of non-compliance through to the Department of, or the HSA, non-compliance? I suppose this is basically, is there a way of escalating obvious non-compliance in the market to the EPA or?
EPA would be the relevant body there, the competent authority. We'd have to check with them that they do take what they call market intelligence through their email address, which if off the top of my head is fgas@epa.ie, I think, is it? But I don't know it's a bit of an EPA question, to be honest. I don't know the detail of how they have procedures about how they take intelligence and all that kind of stuff as well.
Okay.
But Eamon would be the man for that one.
Yeah. And I suppose for our own Again, this is only more of a comment that it would be nice to see. I see that that Solus are investing in new training centres, and that could be, hopefully there will be CO2 rigs and hydrocarbon rigs, etc., available for our young apprentices.
That would be ideal.
Okay.
If we could have what we would love to see, and we've been engaging with some of the other ETBs around the country, is to have maybe one in Cork, one in Dublin, maybe one in the Northwest as well. So you'd have a regional spread. It's you know, the economies of scale are difficult to get. A small island, as you say, with 5 people, well, 6.5 million people when you include the North, I suppose. But we've been engaging with the ETBs, and there's some interest in that.
Yeah. And I just noticed in the chat, Aidan Merriman from the EPA is on the call, and he has just put in the link there. So it is fgases@epa.ie.
I had it right, so that's good to know.
Very good. Very good.
Thanks,
and then I suppose a reminder to people then, again, talking about EU and UK, is that Northern Ireland is still under the Northern Ireland Protocol, is under Fgas, is the same as Ireland. So there's no border there as such.
Indeed, yeah, indeed. So, from the point of view of certification and training, technicians working in the north should have all the same certs as technicians working in, Donegal or Sligo or wherever.
And again, I assume we haven't been talking to the department in the north. Are they intending to set up training? Or do we know?
I don't know. They have been asking us about the possibility of mutual recognition of GB certs, which unfortunately is not a possibility. So I haven't checked back in now with the DARA colleagues in a little while, but I'll put that on the agenda for our next meeting.
Okay. Yeah, just a question coming through says, will end users be fined for loss to atmosphere of high GW refrigerants from their systems?
End users, as in the user of the equipment.
Yes.
Again, it's an enforcement question. It's more for EPA. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure where the offence is in the regulation. I think most of the offences around the installation, maintenance, servicing. I would be surprised if the end user. Hard to say, but I'll take it to EPA again, if you don't mind.
Okay. And let me just look at the Q&A. Just give me a second, see if there's anything there. Yes, I see that in from the same. And let me just.
One thing I would say about losses to atmosphere is that if your equipment is losing gas to atmosphere, then it's obviously not going to be working very well. So it'd be in the end user's own best interest to get it repaired as quickly as possible. I would say.
Yes. Yeah, just Eamon has made a comment here just to say that Fgas relates to Fgases only in terms of leaks. I think that's just from an earlier conversation.
Yeah, about the hydrocarbons. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I think that brings us near the end. I might ask Declan just to close the meeting.
Sure. Thank you, Seamus, and thank you, Owen. So just a note of thanks both to Seamus and to Owen. It's always welcome. It's one of our highest attendances, the Fgas briefings and updates. So we had over 70 people attending today, which is fantastic. And I think from hearing some feedback, I think regular updates would be very welcome. So Owen, I know you appreciate it's a good way for you to connect with the industry. So a few people have just messaged me saying every few months a reminder on this would be very good, because they both need the reminder and the legislation seems to keep changing. So maybe we'll organise another one for the spring, if that would be okay.
Sure, yeah. One thing I forgot to say actually, Declan, is we're also going to be doing some outreach via email to our email list over the coming months, weeks actually, about the certification requirements. And I've just put that's the DCE email address there into the chat. So if anybody wants to get on our email address book or our email list, just send a mail into that saying you want to be added to the list, and then you'll get the updates as they come out.
Excellent. Yeah, so we'll pass on the email in our newsletter as well. And also, I had one or two messages just asking about the training agencies or organizations in Ireland. And one of the questions was, can anybody become a trainer? So I'm not sure, Owen, if that would go to you or
I can answer that. Yeah. So in theory, anybody can become a trainer. Now, to give the courses, the Fgas course is accredited to QQI, and the hydrocarbons course is accredited to Real Alternatives. So you'll need to get accredited by those bodies. So they'll come out and inspect your equipment, and they'll check your curriculum, and they'll check that you're delivering the course as laid out in the specs. But yeah, in theory, anybody can become a training provider.
Okay, thank you. The Institute is often asked about do we provide training? So we don't provide certified competence training like that, but we certainly can communicate the training agencies out there, and they're welcome to join the Institute and so on. And we very much appreciate participating in these activities with them. So, all right, so that closes the event. I'll just share some dates for your diary before I go. So the next event, really, the next general event is on the 18th of November. That's Tuesday, where we have the AGM. And there'll also be an update on the progress of EN 378 through the inquiry stage. So I sit on the technical committee for SEN. We've already had a 1 week in Brussels. There's another guts of a week coming up the week after next. So I'll be able to give a full update on what's happening at the EN 378. There was a strong no vote to the first 3 parts and a yes to the final part 5. That doesn't mean it's dead. It just means there's a lot of work to do for the working group. So I'll give an update on that. And we also have our AGM. So Caroline will send out a notification shortly on that with the times. I think it's lunchtime to early afternoon. And then in January, we'll have our corporate partner lunch. We're just finalizing the venue at the moment. So all our corporate partners are invited to that. It's a very important event for us. The corporate partners facilitate all our activities. We can present events like this for free in terms of the hosting and so on. And we like to see the corporate partners mix and network, and we give them a little update as well as what's coming down the line. And then in April next year, 16th of April on Thursday, we have the Irish Refrigeration and Air Conditioning Exhibition. So we hold this every 2 years. It's in the Green Isle Hotel. And next year we're separating, following feedback and requests, we're separating the awards dinner and the exhibition. It was a nice idea, I think, early on to combine these, but I think they've both grown to where they can, be independent events. And it takes a lot of the pressure off the exhibitors as well. So 16th of April is the exhibition in the Green Isle Hotel, and the 2nd of October is our awards dinner. It's also a special event because the Institute is around about 21 years old, and we'll get some publication going on that. So they're the dates for your diary, and if you'd like to make a note of those. And otherwise, one final thank you again to Seamus and Owen. We really appreciate the time to present the slides and to prepare them. And thank you all for attending, and hope to see you at the next event.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Don.